Do you believe in love at first sight? Do you even believe in love? I didn't. I never really knew what love was until almost 6 years ago when I met this beautiful woman. And yeah, love at first sight is true. Little did I know back when we met that, because she failed to tell me, but she was dying. And she was on the heart transplant list, and well, we'll get to that. But the last 6 years has been an amazing journey for us. And it's involved everything from traveling around the world and learning how to play pool and actually playing in the U.S. Amateur Championships, something you never thought you'd ever do. We've had an amazing life together over the past 6 years. What was your favorite thing that we did?
I think my favorite thing that we did was our trip to Europe.
Traveling around Europe on a motorcycle, just the two of us. We're pretty lucky. We're lucky because we have family and friends that have supported us. We've got beautiful kids, and we have life. It's a wonderful story, but I think what we really should do, I think we're going to let my son Corey tell you more about it.
Gary and Angela, also known as Big G and Beats, and sometimes Mom and Dad, are an extraordinary couple that have both been close to death and came back to appreciate the life they have together as a couple. Angela was raised in Massachusetts by her mom and eventually found herself living in a blended family. As a young girl, she was very upbeat and non-confrontational, making her a social butterfly. Like Snow White, she used to sing to the animals when she was alone in her grandma's barn. Gary was raised in New Hampshire and was quite the opposite. If an activity was fast or dangerous, you could likely find him doing it. He neglected schoolwork, but he aced the military's aptitude exam. Gary, being the reckless youth that he was, knew that his best option was to join the military, finding the Marine Corps to be his best option. Though many told him, "Don't worry if you don't make it through boot camp, it's not for everyone," only his grandfather Joe had the confidence that the scrappy 114-pound kid could make it through. Well, he did one better than just making it. He marched his platoon across the parade deck, graduating as a platoon's honor man. In the years prior to these two souls meeting, they were involved in previous relationships and at one point were both married. Even though both of them tried hard to make these previous marriages work, they were meant to find each other. However, 6 wonderful children resulted from these relationships. They were the proud parents of 3 boys each. Angela had Devin, Derek, and Aiden, and Gary had Corey, Logan, and Jacob. In the summer of 2014, Angela visited family and friends in New England. During the visit, she fell ill and ended up in the emergency room. Just as she was about to be released, one of the doctors approached her and told her that her heart appeared to be enlarged. This was a surprise, since Angela had always focused on living a healthy lifestyle and never smoked or used drugs. After this shocking news, she was released a week later with a regimen of medications. Upon returning to Florida, Angela saw a cardiologist and was set to get a defibrillator surgically implanted. In early December of 2014, Angela visited the Tampa General Hospital to discuss protocol and meet with the team of doctors on standby in case she needed a transplant. During this visit, it was discovered Angela's heart was only functioning at 8%, and without a heart transplant, she would not survive, leaving her 3 boys without a mother. Angela was immediately admitted for about a week, and on December 26, 2014, the team performed open heart surgery, installing a left ventricular assist device to pump the blood that her heart wasn't able to. This machine would now serve as an extension of her body 24/7, keeping her alive until she could get her transplant. It also made Angela vulnerable to water, meaning no baths or swimming. This was Angela's first Christmas spent in a hospital and her second impacted by her illness, although this time she was without her sons. With her whole life changed and feeling a lot closer to death, Angela decided to take the time she had left and make the most of it. She joined the online dating site Plenty of Fish and had no intent of entering a serious relationship in her condition, and with her failing marriage. Although she was not exactly prime dating material, she was getting all kinds of messages. She realized she only had a certain amount of time left, and it was time to make the most of it, including spending time with her boys. In February of 2015, Gary also joined Plenty of Fish, and once he saw Angela's profile, he immediately sent her a message. However, unlike Angela, Gary was looking for a life partner. Angela ignored Gary's messages because he was far too adventurous for her, his profile indicating that he was into international travel, scuba diving, snow skiing, water skiing, even skydiving, and more. Angela was living a safer type of life, and she could not participate even if she wanted to, with her life hanging in the balance. Gary was persistent and unknowing of her condition. Angela was very reluctant to respond, but eventually Gary wore her down with his tenacity, and the two began exchanging messages. On March 17, 2015, Gary invited Angela to dinner for their first date. Showing up dressed to impress, he anxiously awaited for her arrival. She was fashionably late, but Gary was pleased to see that Angela was as pretty as her online photos portrayed, which in the land of online dating is not the norm. Gary was enthralled, but also curious about the oversized fanny pack that had a cord attached to it, constantly by her side. When Gary asked Angela about it, she realized she hadn't talked to him about her condition. She explained everything and made it obvious she didn't want her health to be the focus of the date. After a wonderful meal, they stopped for cheesecake. Driving in separate vehicles, they headed to their next destination so Angela could show off her karaoke skills. Unfortunately, while following Gary, Angela was distracted looking at her phone and rear-ended Gary with her SUV. Gary happened to be driving his son's Porsche, that evening. As he got out of the vehicle, did a quick review of the damage, and then motioned for Angela to roll down her window. She sheepishly apologized. He leaned in, held her face, and kissed her with a smile. He said, "Now, you will never forget our first kiss." Gary and Angela were clearly falling in love, and were talking every day. With knowledge of Angela's condition, Gary's friends and family didn't hold back their opinions. He was questioned on why he would enter into a relationship with a woman that may possibly die. As a single father with a special needs child, Gary had been to hell and back, fighting to provide the best life for his children. When questioned about it, he constantly explained to people, "I'm not sure what's going to happen. I just know that I'm supposed to give this a chance. It is something that I am supposed to do." Some of Gary's family were not so keen on Angela being in his life. On the other hand, his friends saw the two together and could see they were clearly meant to be. After spending some time in this relationship, Gary realized that Angela had never been in a relationship like this. He realized she valued integrity, honesty, and love more than anything materialistic, which is something he'd never seen before. Gary started making promises to Angela and kept them so that she would have something to look forward to every day, a distraction from what was looming. In hopes of making the summer of 2015 the best, he promised to create memories her kids would cherish. Promises made, promises kept. Gary and Angela never really talked about death. It was never an option for it to be the end of their story. Gary felt committed to keeping Angela and her son safe and happy until they got the call. In late April of 2015, Angela was hospitalized and receiving plasmapheresis treatments due to a high antibody count. Gary knew by this time he was dedicated to her and all the boys. He also realized that he would be committing to a relationship that may result in the loss of the woman that he had grown to love. Upon meeting Angela's doctor and speaking with him directly, Gary got a reality check. Things were worse than he had imagined, and the doctor told him it wasn't that her limitations were physical, but he said her only limit was time. Every moment, every second mattered, and this only hardened Gary's resolve. This is when Gary decided if Angela wasn't going to seize the day, he'd do it for her. The bucket list started and things were crossed off as soon as they were added to the list. Never saying no to a possible memory that could be cherished and making the most of every minute, knowing it could be her last. This was to become Angela and Gary's theme song. October 13th, 2015 was the day that Corey left to join the Army. A week later, Gary was involved in a serious motorcycle accident. He was thrown from his bike, which landed on top of him. The result was 8 broken bones and severe tissue damage. Gary had a new outlook on life. He felt a wave of empathy. It was the first time in his adult life that he understood what it was like to be helpless, in serious pain and unable to go it alone. Having been born with congenital hip dysplasia, Gary started his life by having to pull his body around and being unable to walk. He could now empathize with Angela in the fight for her life. Although still handicapped, Gary refused to miss his upcoming work trip to Las Vegas. He took Angela with him just 3 weeks after the accident. During this time, they had a celebration of love and life and a commitment ceremony with Elvis. Promises made, promises kept. After the trip, Angela's condition was quickly deteriorating, and it was near impossible for her to do much. She'd often pass out in the middle of a conversation, and it was becoming clear to Gary and her mom that Angela was dying right before their eyes. December 19th at 1:30 a.m., Angela received that long-awaited phone call informing him that there was a donor heart. Excited and scared, they rushed to the hospital, where Angela was prepped and in for surgery in 11 hours. Angela's mom flew in, but arrived at the hospital minutes after they wheeled her in for surgery. On this day, Angela was given the greatest Christmas gift of all, a new heart, and with it, the gift of life. Hearing heartbeats coming from Angela's chest for the first time, Gary was overcome with emotion. Gary thought it was the most amazing sound he had ever heard. It was literally shaking the blankets covering her, pumping Angela full of life. Angela and Gary were given the opportunity to see pictures of her damaged heart once it was removed. Her heart was being cooked as a result of the heat from the pump that kept her alive for nearly a year. It was a mystery why it had lasted so long in its condition. Was it destiny? Was it God's gift to a couple who had gone through hell and back, giving them a new lease on life? Doesn't matter. Either way, Angela survived. The donor heart arriving when it did was nothing short of a miracle. Once again, Angela would miss being with her sons for Christmas, but Gary, Logan, and Corey decorated her hospital room to be more festive. The surgery was successful, and they spent New Year's in the hospital. Although it was very different, it was very special, and it was the start of their new life together. Angela, however, was not out of the woods yet. By February of 2016, she was once again fighting for her life, as the antibodies in her blood were attacking her new heart. Unfortunately, she endured many subsequent visits to the hospital, including being medevaced. Angela's incredible determination and will to live carried her through these ongoing life-threatening challenges. She's still fighting to this day, and Gary will always be by her side, doing the same. The unfortunate demise of a beautiful woman named Lori saved Angela's life. On March 25th, 2016, Angela had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Lori's son, Doug. You see, it was Doug that gave permission to the doctors to donate his mom's heart to Angela. It was Doug that gave Angela a chance to live. And now, over 5 years later, it is Doug that will walk Angela down the aisle on her wedding day along with her stepdad. As he gave his mom's heart to Angela, he is now giving her hand in marriage to Gary.
Hi, my name is Douglas Vos. My mom was Lori Kramer. She was the donor for Angela's heart transplant. Mom was a free spirit. She loved animals, adventures, loved to go camping, loved to go hiking. She liked drinking wine, liked to party. She was funny, kind, smart, beautiful, and everybody she ever met loved her. She made the best out of every situation. It was no surprise to know that she was an organ donor. Shortly before Christmas in 2015, she passed away. And during this hard time, we lost someone very special to us, but we were able to help out so many other people with organ donations that they desperately needed, one of which was Angela with her heart. When I finally got to meet Angela, I felt a multitude of emotions, from grief to joy and everything in between. And there was such a feeling of gratitude and thankfulness from family and friends. It was very overwhelming. It's a privilege to be here and to have been taken in as part of your guys' family, and I can't thank you enough.
Wow. Looking back at what we've been through, we have so much to be thankful for, and so many reasons to appreciate where we are today. We're in our dream home, which was a crazy, crazy journey just going through that, and never mind all the times that we didn't even know if you were going to make it through the night. We were in the hospital.
I know. There were many nights I went to bed and didn't know if I was going to wake up in the morning.
Yeah, I remember many times actually listening to actually see if you were breathing, because you had no heartbeat, and it was just, you could hear the sound but didn't actually know if you were there, you know, if you were alive. And to think of what our kids have been part of and how we've actually kept them from being impacted to the best of our abilities by, you know, keeping them busy and taking them places and making memories instead of worrying about, you know, talking about, you know, death and everything else. I think we did a pretty damn good job.
We did.
And we have family and friends to be thankful for, because we did have some family members that supported us, and we certainly have had a lot of friends that have been at your side as well as mine.
Yeah. And thanks to Lori.
Oh God, Lori.
She gave me the beautiful gift of a heart.
Thanks, Doug, too.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah. I think we got a lot more plans, a lot more things to do in the future. Where do you think we should go next?
Portugal.
All right, let's maybe we should go.
Let's go.
Skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. Then I loved deeper and I spoke sweeter and I watched an eagle as it was flying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying.